The cake was untouched. The candles still flickered, but Fina just stared at her phone, numb, reading the words that shattered her heart. We're done. I found someone better. And just like that, Lano ruined her birthday. What he didn't know, this would be the last time he'd ever get to break her. Fina had been looking forward to her birthday for weeks. She didn't have much, but she managed to save a little from her small salary to buy a simple cake and cook some rice for a quiet dinner. She cleaned her small room, set the table, lit a few candles, and even wore her favorite dress. She told her friends about it days before, hoping they would come and make her feel special. But as the sun began to set, her phone buzzed. A message came in from Lano, her boyfriend of 3 years. Her heart jumped, thinking it was a sweet birthday wish. But when she opened it, the words froze her. We're done. I found someone better. That was it. No explanation, no phone call, no goodbye. Just those cold, painful words on the same day she had hoped to feel most loved. She stared at the screen for minutes, hoping it was a joke or mistake, but there was no follow-up message. She called him. No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. Her hands shook. Her lips trembled. She looked around her small room, the cake still in the box, the food untouched, the candles flickering softly in the background. Her friends never showed up. Not one message. Not one knock at the door. Fina sat down quietly, feeling like the whole world had turned its back on her. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't even wipe them. She just whispered to herself, over and over again, what did I do wrong? Wasn't I enough? That night, Fina didn't eat. She didn't cry loudly. She just sat in silence with her heart shattered into pieces. The room felt colder, the light dimmer. Everything she had looked forward to disappeared in a moment. A simple birthday that was meant to be a moment of joy became the most painful memory of her life. And in that quiet, lonely moment, something inside her broke. But something else quietly began to rise. 1 week after Fina's birthday, when her heart was still aching and her eyes still felt tired from crying, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Lano. It was a photo sent by someone she hadn't heard from in a while. At first, she didn't want to open it, but curiosity won. She tapped it, and what she saw made her chest tighten. There was Lano, dressed up, smiling, his arm wrapped around a new girl. They were sitting inside a fancy restaurant, laughing like nothing else in the world mattered. But what hurt the most? It was the same restaurant he once took Fina to, the same one where he had held her hand and whispered, "Someday I'll bring you here after we get married, just you and me forever." Now, someone else was in that seat. Fina looked closer at the girl's face. Her breath caught in her throat. It was Zika, someone Fina knew from school. Zika had never been kind. In fact, back then, Zika always made fun of Fina for being poor. She would laugh loudly whenever Fina walked in, wearing second-hand shoes or clothes that weren't new. "Who dressed you? The village ghost?" she once said in front of the whole class. And now, that same girl was with the man Fina gave 3 years of her life to. More photos followed. Zika smiling with Lano. Zika holding the same wine glass Lano once made Fina sip from. Even sitting in the same seat where Fina once sat, dreaming of their future. It felt like someone had taken her memories and painted over them with someone else's face. People started talking. Some sent screenshots. Some laughed. Some just stared. Fina stayed quiet. She didn't reply. She didn't explain. But inside, she was breaking all over again. The betrayal felt deeper than just a breakup. It wasn't just that Lano moved on. It was how he did it. With a girl who once made Fina feel small, at a place that once felt like a promise. As if he wanted to erase her completely, like she had never existed in his world. Fina sat on her bed that night, the photos still glowing on her phone screen. Her hands shook, but her eyes didn't cry anymore. There was something else now, something sharper than pain, a quiet strength, a voice inside her whispering, "You don't have to beg for love. You just have to remember who you are." She didn't block him. She didn't send any angry messages. She just watched the pictures once more and silently promised herself, one day he'll see me again. But not like this. It had been a rough morning for Fina. She had just walked out of another job interview, and once again they told her, "We'll call you," with that same fake smile she had seen too many times. As soon as she stepped outside the office building, the tears came. She tried to hold them back, but her heart was too heavy. Everything felt like it was falling apart. Her relationship, her dreams, her self-worth. She sat on the edge of the stairs, buried her face in her hands, and cried softly, hoping no one would notice. People passed by. Some looked, some didn't. But then, one man stopped. He was wearing a navy blue suit, polished shoes, and carried himself like someone important. Yet his voice was soft and kind. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Fina looked up, embarrassed, quickly wiping her tears. "I'm fine," she said, trying to smile. But he could see she wasn't. Without saying much, he handed her a clean tissue from his pocket. "Sometimes," he said, "closed doors just lead you to better ones. Don't let this moment define you." Fina nodded, too overwhelmed to say anything more. He didn't ask for her name. He didn't offer a job. He just stayed for 2 minutes, gave her a small nod, and walked away into the building. Fina sat there, wondering who he was. Just a stranger, a worker, maybe a manager. She didn't think too much about it. But his words stayed in her heart, like a quiet light in the dark. Weeks passed. Fina kept applying for jobs, though her hope was fading. Then, one day, she received an unexpected email. "Congratulations. You've been accepted for an internship at Luca Holdings." She was confused. She didn't even remember applying, but she went. On her first day at Luca Holdings, she was nervous. The office was huge and busy. Everyone looked so smart and confident. Then someone walked past, and Fina froze. It was him, the man in the navy suit, the stranger who gave her that tissue. Only now, people were calling him Mr. Tai and treating him with deep respect. That's when she learned the truth. The kind man who comforted her outside the building was Tai Luco, the billionaire owner of Luca Holdings, the one everyone in the city talked about. Fina couldn't believe it. She didn't run up to him. She didn't remind him of that day, but her heart whispered, "He saw me when I was at my lowest, and now somehow I'm here." And without knowing it, that moment became the quiet beginning of something far bigger than she could imagine. Fina started her internship at Luca Holdings with quiet steps and a heart full of mixed emotions. She was still healing from Lano's betrayal, still trying to find herself again. She worked hard, always on time, always focused, but she mostly stayed silent. She didn't want attention. She just wanted peace. Tai noticed her, not just because she worked hard, but because of the way she carried herself, calm, respectful, and strong, even though something about her eyes always looked a little sad. One day, after a team meeting, he called her into his office. Fina thought she had done something wrong, but instead, Tai simply asked, "How are you settling in?" She was surprised. Most bosses didn't care, but he did. From that day, Tai began to check in on her work personally. He asked questions, listened to her ideas, and corrected her gently when she made mistakes. He started inviting her to sit in on big meetings, and even allowed her to help with some small projects. At first, Fina thought maybe he was just being nice, but soon she realized he truly believed in her, not just in what she could do, but in who she was. Over time, their conversations became more open. Tai would sometimes tell her about his own journey, how he built the company from scratch, how he didn't always get along with his family. That's when Fina found out something that made her heart skip a beat. Tai was Lano's elder brother. She didn't know what to say. She felt confused, awkward, even scared. What if he found out she used to date Lano? Would he fire her? Would he change the way he saw her? But Tai never mentioned Lano, not once. It was clear that whatever happened between the brothers had created distance between them. They hadn't spoken in years, so Fina kept it to herself. She focused on her work, and day by day, Tai continued to mentor her. He challenged her to think bigger, dream higher, and speak up. He praised her when she did well and corrected her with kindness when she didn't. He made her feel seen, not for her past, but for her potential. Slowly, something gentle began to grow between them. It wasn't loud, it wasn't fast, but it was real. For the first time in a long while, Fina felt safe again. Not just in her job, but in her heart. She didn't expect to find a new light after being left in the dark, but somehow Tai became that light, guiding her, lifting her, and reminding her that even after pain, something beautiful can begin. The night of the gala was big for Luca Holding. It was their annual celebration, and people from all over the country were invited. Investors, partners, celebrities, and business leaders. Fina was nervous. It was her first time attending something so grand. She stood in front of the mirror, her hands slightly shaking, but when she looked at herself, She almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her dress was simple, but elegant. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and her eyes, they no longer looked broken. They held confidence, the kind that only comes from surviving pain and still standing tall. Ty had personally invited her to come with him. He said, "You've earned your place. Walk in like you belong." And she did. The room was filled with lights, music, and laughter. As Fina entered with Ty by her side, people turned to look. Whispers followed. "Who's she? Is that Ty's date?" But Fina kept her chin up. She didn't need their approval. She just needed to breathe and be proud of how far she'd come. Then, across the room, a familiar face appeared. Lano. He had come with a few friends dressed in his usual confident style. But when his eyes landed on Fina, something in his smile faded. He blinked twice, almost as if he couldn't believe it was her, the girl he dumped over text, the girl he thought would cry forever. Now here she was, standing beside his billionaire brother, glowing like a star. Lano's mouth went dry. He watched as Ty gently touched Fina's back while guiding her through the crowd. He watched her laugh, not the shy laugh she used to give him, but a full, joyful laugh that showed she had healed, that she had moved on. And for the first time, Lano felt small. He tried to act normal, but his eyes kept following her, the way she spoke with guests, the way people listened when she talked. She was graceful, she was confident, she was everything he never saw when he had her. Fina saw him too. Their eyes met for a moment, and in that short glance, no words were needed. Her silence said everything. "I've changed, I've grown, and I don't need you anymore." That night, Lano was the one standing alone, watching from a distance. He wasn't the star, he wasn't in control, he was just a memory, a mistake. And the girl he once left behind? She had become untouchable. Fina didn't try to make him jealous. She didn't even try to prove anything. She simply existed in her truth, and that truth was powerful enough to shake him to his core. A few days after the gala, Fina received a knock on her apartment door. She wasn't expecting anyone, and when she opened it, her heart skipped, but not in a good way. It was Lano, standing there with a forced smile, holding a bunch of flowers in one hand and a small photo album in the other. His eyes looked soft, almost sad, but Fina could tell something wasn't real. "Fina," he said, almost like he was out of breath. "I've been thinking about you, about us. I made a mistake." She didn't say anything. She just stood there, calm, watching him. He stepped a little closer and opened the album. Inside were old pictures, the two of them from happier times, birthdays, beach trips, moments they once shared. He flipped through the pages slowly, as if trying to pull her heart back into the past. "I don't know what I was thinking," he continued. "You were always there for me, and I left you, for nothing. I miss you, I really do." His voice cracked like he might cry, but Fina had cried enough for both of them already. She didn't feel weak anymore. She didn't feel desperate. In fact, she didn't feel much at all. Then came the flowers, bright, fresh, and expensive. He held them out to her, like they were an apology, big enough to erase everything. She looked at them, then back at him. Finally, she spoke. "Would your new girlfriend be okay with this visit?" Lano blinked. His lips parted, but no words came out. He looked lost, like he didn't expect her to say that. He stood frozen for a second, trying to come up with a reply, but Fina didn't wait. She slowly took a step back, placed her hand on the door and said softly, "That's what I thought." Then she closed the door. No shouting, no crying, no drama. Just a quiet end to a story that had already ended long ago. He just hadn't accepted it yet. On the other side of the door, Lano stood there, staring at the wood like it might open again, but it didn't. Fina had moved on. He was too late. All he had now were old photos, fake tears, and memories of a girl who no longer needed him. Inside, Fina sat down by her window. She didn't cry. She didn't smile either. She just felt peace, the kind that comes when you finally choose yourself. Months passed, and Fina's life continued to grow brighter. Her bond with Ty became stronger with each day. He respected her, supported her, and loved her in a way she'd never known before. One quiet evening, while watching the sunset together, Ty took her hand, looked into her eyes, and asked her to marry him. There was no crowd, no big show, just a simple, honest moment filled with love. Fina smiled and said yes. Soon after, the wedding plans began. It wasn't about showing off. They wanted something beautiful, personal, and full of meaning. Their invitations were sent out digitally, a modern, elegant card with golden edges, soft music, and their names written in bold: Fina, and Tai Luco. People started sharing it online, congratulating them, praising how lovely it looked. But then, something happened. One small detail caught everyone's attention. At the bottom of the invite, in neat, clear letters, it read, "You're invited, Lano, because sometimes you need to witness what you lost." It was simple, it was quiet, but it hit like thunder. Screenshots of the invitation spread across social media like wildfire. People couldn't stop talking about it. Is that the ex? Did she really tag him? This is the classiest clapback ever. Within hours, the invite had gone viral. Thousands of shares, thousands of comments. Some called it savage, others called it poetic, but almost everyone agreed. It was powerful. Fina didn't post anything herself. She didn't explain. She didn't brag. She just let the world see what it wanted to see. Deep down, she knew that moment wasn't about revenge. It was about showing the truth. Lano saw it too. His phone buzzed non-stop with notifications. At first, he thought it was just another wedding announcement. But when he read the message and saw his name written at the bottom, his heart sank. He stared at it for a long time, not knowing what to say or how to feel. This wasn't a cry for attention. It was a message, one he couldn't ignore. She had moved on. She had leveled up. And now, the whole world knew it. The girl he once broke with a text on her birthday was now marrying a man who saw her worth from the very beginning. And the world wasn't just invited to celebrate her love. They were invited to witness her rise. And Lano, he was invited too, not to be part of her story again, but to see how beautifully it ended without him. The wedding day finally came. The hall was filled with warm lights, soft music, and happy faces. Every table was decorated with care, every seat taken by people who truly loved Fina and Tai. Laughter floated through the air, and the smell of fresh flowers filled the room. It was more than just a wedding. It was a celebration of strength, healing, and true love. Among the guests, sitting quietly in a corner near the back, was Lano. He looked out of place in his suit, alone, uncomfortable. His date, nowhere to be seen. Zika had left him weeks earlier, tired of the drama, the guilt, and the silence between them. He hadn't told anyone. He just showed up that day, unsure of what he was even doing there. He watched as people whispered and smiled, sneaking glances at him, knowing exactly who he was. But Lano kept his eyes on the stage, waiting. Then, the music changed. Everyone stood, and there she was, Fina, walking down the aisle in a golden dress that shimmered like sunlight. She didn't rush. She didn't hide. She walked with calm grace, a small smile on her face, her eyes shining not with tears but with peace. The same girl he once thought would never rise without him, now looked like a queen. Lano's heart ached, not just with jealousy, but with regret. Real, deep regret. He remembered the text he sent, the way he ended it all without a word, the way he laughed with Zika days later. And now, here he was, surrounded by love, but with no one to hold his hand. Tai stood at the front, his eyes locked on Fina like she was his whole world. When she reached him, he took her hand, kissed it gently, and whispered, "This is what you deserve." The crowd clapped, not just for the beauty of the moment, but for the journey. Lano clapped too, softly, his hands slow and unsure. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He had a seat, yes, but he had no place in her life anymore. As Fina and Tai danced their first dance, Lano looked down at his plate, untouched. The music played, the room glowed, but his table, still just for one. And in that moment, Lano realized something's painful. He wasn't just watching a wedding. He was witnessing the result of his choices. She had become gold, and he was just another guest, staring at what could have been. As the wedding celebration reached its peak, the music softened and the lights dimmed just a little. A gentle hush fell over the room as Fina stood up holding her glass. She walked slowly to the center, where all eyes were now on her. The golden light touched her face, making her glow even brighter. People smiled, waiting to hear what she would say. Maybe a sweet thank you, or a funny memory, or a message about love. But Fina didn't start with a fairy tale. She didn't talk about how lucky she was, or how perfect everything seemed. Her eyes moved across the room, not just to her guests, but to every woman sitting there, every girl who had ever been hurt. Then she lifted her glass, took a deep breath, and spoke. "To every woman who was left on her birthday," she said, her voice strong and steady. The room grew still. You could feel the emotions rising, one heartbeat at a time. To every girl who was told she's not enough, she continued. Some guests lowered their eyes, some nodded slowly, and somewhere near the back, Lano sat frozen, unable to look away. Fina paused for a second, then smiled softly and finished her words. You're not only enough, you're gold. And with that, she raised her glass high. The entire hall stood up. People clapped, people cheered, some even cried. It wasn't just a toast. It was a moment of truth, a moment that touched everyone who had ever been broken, ignored, or made to feel small. Fina wasn't just speaking for herself. She was speaking for all the women who had been told to settle, who were made to feel like second choice, who had their worth questioned. Ty stood beside her, proud, clapping the loudest. He didn't just love Fina, he respected the fire inside her. Even people who had never met her before that night felt something shift in their hearts. Her words weren't fancy, they weren't long, but they were powerful. And Lano? He sat still, staring down at the table. No one clapped for him. No one turned his way. In that moment, he understood what he had truly lost. Fina took her seat again with grace, her smile calm, her heart full. She hadn't just married the right man. She had healed, grown, and stood tall in front of everyone who ever doubted her. The night continued with music and dancing, but Fina's toast stayed in everyone's mind, because it wasn't just about love. It was about strength, about truth, about knowing your value, and never letting anyone dim your shine again. Months passed after the wedding, but people still talked about it, not just because it was beautiful, but because of the message Fina left behind. She didn't scream, she didn't fight, she didn't try to ruin Lano's life the way he once tried to ruin hers. She simply moved forward, and that was the real power. Fina and Ty had settled into a life full of peace and purpose. One quiet morning, they made an announcement, not with glitter, not with cameras, but with heart. They were starting a scholarship fund, not for rich families, not for praise, but for women who had been through betrayal, heartbreak, or shame, just like Fina once had. It was called the Rise Again Fund, and its mission was simple: to help women rebuild with dignity. Every woman who had been told, "You're not enough," now had someone in their corner, someone who had walked through fire and came out glowing. Fina didn't want applause, she just wanted change. As the news spread, people praised her grace, her strength, her silence. Because while others waste time plotting revenge, Fina chose to heal others. And Lano? He sat alone again, just like he had at the wedding. That one wedding invite had shaken his world. He kept looking back at that message. You're invited, Lano, because sometimes you need to witness what you lost. At first, he thought it was a joke. Then, he thought it was meant to hurt him. But now, he realized it was the truth. She didn't want revenge. She didn't need to destroy him. She just wanted to be free. And she got that, without ever raising her voice. Lano scrolled through Fina's name more times than he could count, but he never had the courage to text. What would he even say? Sorry, I miss you. It didn't matter. She had already closed that chapter, because some people get revenge, but the strongest ones, they just succeed in silence. And that's what Fina did. She glowed. She gave back. She smiled without bitterness. She built a life where pain no longer had space. And every time a woman receives help through the scholarship, every time someone chooses healing instead of hate, Fina wins again. Not with noise, but with purpose. That was her closure. Tag a queen who turned pain into power. Share this with every woman who forgot her worth, because healing quietly is louder than any revenge.